Okay, so today's video is going to be about creating motivation in sales calls. Now, I did a video of this at the start of the week, and this is the second half of it. So, in my view, I think there's two parts of creating motivation, and I think people are motivated either because they are running from something or towards something else. So the last video was building up the dream that they want to strive towards. And this one, this training, this framework is about making them realize the deprivation they currently have. Because they might not be there right now. So a classic example of this is, and I think this will become blindingly obvious the moment I tell you, is if you walk into the doctor's office because you've got heart, you're having issues with your chest or whatever, and you turn up and they go, bro, you're morbidly obese and you've got diabetes. Like, you're not just a little tubby, you're dying. Now you've created motivation to change. And the reason I use that example is that's a true story from my own dad. That he went to the doctor's office and he was said, okay, so you're pre-diabetic and if you don't lose this weight, you got a 50-50 chance of dying in the next 10 years. Boom. And then guess what? In the next 6 weeks, he shifted the weight he's been struggling to shift for the last, God knows, 15, 20 years. Because he's now got the motivation. So how can we apply this in a sales call? So I've just done this training with my team right now of how to create that deprivation. And you have to twist the knife. You've got to rip the bandage off. And so we broke this whole thing down into, this is where you're at right now, but this is why I think you can still achieve the thing. Here's the problem, would you agree? All right, so just to get them to say, yeah, that is the problem. All right, so here's an example of how it might go in one of our sales training calls. It's one of our sales calls. Like, we're talking with a student, being like, now, look, this is here. You want to get that 6 or 7, right? And school is telling you that you're working at maybe a 5 or a 6. I'm gonna be that guy that's honest with you, right? I don't want you to be misguided, to think everything's going great, and then you get around to the exam and you fail. Like, right now, if you were to sit the exam today, realistically you're looking at a 4, right? Scraping a 4. You're currently gambling as to whether or not you'd even pass the foundation paper, let alone going on to the higher one. But your foundations are rock solid. You just demonstrated that you're willing to put in the effort to get there. And I think what the issue really is as you're getting onto those higher questions at the end of the paper where they get a bit harder, that's where you're starting to struggle. I know you mentioned about your teachers being away and inconsistent learning and all that sort of stuff. Do you think that's why you're struggling with that? Yeah, okay. Sweet, and then we move into the overview section. It's so much more compelling to be like, absolute slap in the face. You're not going to be where you think you want to be. And you're not where you are right now. Did you realise? Okay, great, now we move on. And sometimes this might mean in a sales call, like, we occasionally have kids that are super arrogant. They're like, yeah, I'm smashing it, I'm at a 7, an 8 or a 9. And we're like, bro, you'd be lucky if you get a 5. You'd be lucky. And then you have to rinse them. You've got to sucker punch them so that they realise the situation that they're in. Otherwise, they won't be willing to make a change. So that's what motivation is. And actually, what all of sales calls comes down to is create the delta, create a difference between where they are and where they want to be. If you build that image clearly enough and you create the motivation for them to take action. So that's the thoughts for today, and a little key framework for you of how to create the first part of motivation. So this is where you're at from a position of authority, but I know you can get there for these reasons. This is the problem, would you agree? And then you can move on, if you're using the same framework as us, to the overview of, so tell me what you've tried before. And then you can analyse why it didn't work, why it does work, what to do going forwards. There you go. Fun one. All right, catch you guys tomorrow. Peace.